stunning looks than swift.
Match number 40 out of 45, and it arrives with a significance that no one could have predicted. Neither of these teams are in the hunt for the semis, but at stake is a spot at the next big men's ICC event. While England are battling to avoid missing out on the Champions Trophy for the first ever time, Netherlands are striving to qualify for the Champions Trophy for the first time. The European Derby is where our attention lies this Wednesday on Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricinfo Matchday, powered by Qatar Airways. We're in the company of Steve Harmison in our studios. Good day to you, Steve. And we are joined by Niall O'Brien. Good morning for you, Niall. Early start. Good to see you up and about. Steve, there's so much that's been spoken about the implications of what has happened and what hasn't happened. But the implications of missing out on a Champions Trophy for England would be huge.
Be massive. It would be huge, and I think that's what England have got to be saying to themselves in a team meeting last night, in the huddle this morning. It's not about what's gone; it's about what's to come. And there's two massive games for England. You know, we've got some absolute champions of 50-over cricket who have played some unbelievable cricket in their time, in their days, who are potentially coming to the end of their cycle. They need one last hurrah. They need England to make sure they qualify for the Champions Trophy in 2025, and that is what happens now, and not obviously what's been an absolute debacle of a World Cup so far.
Flip the coin over, Niall, and for Netherlands, if they are to make the Champions Trophy, what would that qualification mean?
Well, first and foremost, already in the Netherlands players and the media are getting behind the side massively, where they haven't done in previous years. So already the team, the players, the coaches, they're getting more recognition than they have done in the past. So to try and qualify for a Champions Trophy would be absolutely exceptional. Getting to the World Cup itself, the route they had to get to India, to take down the likes of South Africa and Bangladesh. It's been a successful campaign as it is, but if they can somehow qualify for that Champions Trophy, I think it'll do wonders for cricket in the Netherlands.
Yeah, they already made enough waves by ensuring a past heavyweight in West Indies didn't make it to the World Cup. Now the prospect of allowing one of the champion modern sides to not make their ticket to a marquee event, so a lot on the line for the Netherlands. And they do have happy memories of meeting England at world events, don't they? Two of their more famous wins in Netherlands cricket history have come against England. They beat them twice at the Men's T20 World Cup, once in 2009 and once in 2014. But while Steve Harmison looks back at me, he will be quick to remind me that when it comes to the ODI World Cup, the record reads England 3, Netherlands 0. The most recent of those fixtures was in 2011 in India, a game where Ryan Carter was player of the match, but England did eventually chase their target of 293 with utmost ease. Now, Steve, I know we are looking for good spirits, which is what we expected, but before we get to the good, we have to also look at England's campaign so far, and just the title defense, how it's gone all pear-shaped right from the start, and the numbers, we've dug it out. They don't make for pretty reading, but we've got to go through the drill. It is at the moment, with 1 win and 6 losses, already hands down the worst title defense any team has had in the history of the Men's ODI World Cup. In fact, there are only 3 instances of a defending champion not having made it past the group stage. The other 2 were Australia in 1992, who were 5th in a 9-team round robin and just missed out. Sri Lanka in 1999, it was England who had done the job on them in the opener of that World Cup. And now England, as of now, 6 losses in 7. They're hoping to avoid the ignominy of finishing. Even if they are to win both those games, they will finish with a 33% win rate. Everything that's happened so far, how easy is it for England, given that while there's one part of us which has been saying just put them on the flight back and let the torture be over, given the Champions Trophy qualification, how important and how easy or not is it to just put the kind of month you've had behind you?
It's not easy, but the one good thing from an England dressing room point of view, there's some experienced players in there who have been here, had some good times, some really ridiculously high times, but they've also come across some poor times as well. The likes of Mo and Ali, Ben Stokes, Joe Root, and Josh Butler, captain himself. They were all part of the Owen Morgan shift in 2015, when before 2015 England were a poor white ball side. Now, since 2015, Owen Morgan grabbed the group by the scruff of the neck, changed the way that the outlook of the game, of the way people sort of spoke about the game and then played the game from 2015 onwards. So they've had some dark times, and I think because of the experience in the dressing room, they'll be able to get themselves ready and up for this two-match competition, if you want to say, to qualify for the Champions Trophy. So with that respect, I'm not worried about them getting up for the challenge. I'm just worried that they're in so poor form individually that as a collective unit, England look miles and miles away from their best.
Niall, for Netherlands, do they approach this game with almost an added sense of buoyancy that we're meeting a side which, while it is a heavyweight, they are at such a low right now, and that automatically presents an opportunity to pounce?
Yeah, a beautiful game for the Netherlands. As a Dutch player, as an associate cricketer, you'll be eyeing this game up for weeks, really. And the Netherlands in the preparation, they'll know that England are as low as they've probably been, as Harmy mentioned, since 2015. So for Netherlands, it's a great opportunity. Their confidence will be so high, even coming off a loss in Lucknow a couple of days ago. They will be right up for this challenge. So I think for the Netherlands, it's a cracking opportunity to take down England and stick another nail in the England coffin. I agree with Harmy to a certain extent in terms of England. They've got world quality players, but the confidence has been sucked out of that England dressing room to such an extent. I don't know, as an ex-player, if I was in that position, I just don't know how I'm going to get myself up, because previous games it would have been easier to say, right, we've got to get ourselves up, we've got to beat India, we've got to beat Australia to try and stay in competition. They're out of the World Cup now, and they're up against the Netherlands. I reckon this is going to be a really tough encounter for England. In 2015, the England World Cup team was a bad team. If you look through that squad, it was a poor team, skill set wise. This team is not a poor team. There is an abundance of ability. So somehow, coach and captain say, right, forget what's gone on the last 3 weeks. It's been rubbish. We have to step up now as individuals and put performances in. Get in with the bat, cash in on what will be a good surface, and with ball in hand, stake a marker down, take to the game by the scruff of the neck. And I think it's down to individuals now. I'm not sure what the coach or captain could say. As a player, individually, you've got to look deep inside. I've not been good enough. I can put it right the next 2 games and go home at least with a bit of personal pride.
Right. The toss is done. The day has begun well for England. They have won the toss and they have opted to bat first in Pune, a venue where the most recent fixture saw South Africa pile on 350 plus and win easy against New Zealand. And England have rung in some changes. One of them might have been forced. Mark Wood was dealing with some injury issues. He misses out, and Gus Atkinson, who'd got 1 game earlier in the competition, is back in the lineup. And there is also a return for Harry Brook. Liam Livingston misses out. Steve, your thoughts on that lineup?
Yeah, pretty bog standard and what we were expecting, really. I knew Mark Wood wasn't going to play. I don't understand why Gus Atkinson got left out after his 1 game. I still can't understand how Sam Curran can't get into this team the way the team's been performing. I'd like to have seen Bryden Cast play. Wokes and Willie, David Willie's had a reasonable tournament and he's been there as a fighter, but he's retired from international cricket. So when I look at that team, I think the right thing for Brook is to be back in over Livingston. I would have made a change at the top. I would have made a change right at the very top. The problem that when England come back in 2 weeks' time and they have a debrief about where this has gone wrong, I think a lot of it will come from the last 7.5 years. We have been so powerful in the power play. We've had Jason Roy go in at the top, and even if we've lost wickets, we've been ahead of the curve. And we've changed it 6 months out, with not because we wanted to change our game plan, just the personnel that found itself in a position, i.e. Devon Milan and then you've got Joe Root, all of a sudden our dynamics have changed at the top. We are ninth on the list of boundary hitting. For me, in this game, I would have gone with Josh Butler at the top, Malan at 3, Root at 4, Stokes at 5, Butler, Brook at 5, and Stokes at 6 with Mo and Ali at 7. I really would have changed that dynamic and took pressure off Josh, because it seems as though he's got the weight of the world on his shoulders. He's not had a great tournament with a bat. I would have sent him out first on a good Pune wicket and said, right, just go and have some fun.
Niall, Scott Edwards said at the toss that they would have wanted to bat first as well. If we see the 3 games that have happened so far, the first 2 games saw scores in the range of 250, which were comfortably chased. And then there was the South Africa-New Zealand one where South Africa piled on that massive score. What do you expect from the Pune surface, and how do Netherlands calibrate their game to give themselves the best chance now that they're bowling first?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, the pitch in Pune is generally a good surface. Ground staff normally leave a bit of grass on it, so you can get a bit out of it as a seam bowling unit. So first tick for Netherlands is to try and utilise their seamers. They've got a good, disciplined seam bowling attack. Paul van Meekeren has been excellent all tournament. They've got enough pace without being express. So accuracy, preying on the vulnerability and the lack of confidence in the England batting line. When you're a batter and you're out of confidence, you're out of nick, you start searching for the ball. You start playing at balls you don't need to, and your feet don't move as they should. So for Netherlands, you bang a line of length. You test England's patience. You test England's confidence and their skill set and their mindset. That's first and foremost. Batting in the afternoon and batting in the evening should be quite nice. The ball should skid on, and they shouldn't be overly worried about England's bowling attack. It's an attack that hasn't necessarily been at its best. Mark Wood, the express pace, is out. That's an area in associate cricket you don't come up against that often. People bowl 150 Ks. So Mark Wood is out. Gus Atkinson is in. I like that. I agree with Harmy. He was the bowler of the summer, really, in the UK domestic season and catapulted into the England side. He's on a 2-year central contract. Surprised you didn't see him earlier in the tournament. So I'm glad Gus Atkinson is in. I also agree with Harmy. I don't know if Sam Curran is injured or if he's just out of favour at the moment, but Moeen Ali's had a very poor tournament. Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think he's got a wicket. So Sam Curran as a bowler and as a batter is probably a more valuable asset than Moeen Ali right now. So I think it's not a bad toss to lose for Netherlands at all. I think for England, they've got to go out and back themselves and get on the front foot.
Just a comment on that. Moeen Ali, the kind of World Cup he's had, no wickets, as Niall points out. Given where you are, Sam Curran not getting games, is that a change you would have made? Not
for Moeen Ali. I think the Moeen Ali change, if you wanted to make the change, you go with Liam Livingstone or Moeen Ali. I think the change for me with Sam Curran was either David Willey or for Chris Woakes. I think you have to have 2 viable spin options, which England are reluctant to use Moeen Ali. So the reluctance of using Moeen Ali, reluctant to use Moeen Ali from a spin option, is possibly an opportunity to say, well, if you're not going to play Mo, you play Liam Livingstone, because of more destructive batters further down the line. But I think they tried not to play Moeen at the start, didn't work. Moeen's come in, hasn't performed. I think England are a better team when Moeen Ali's in the team and performing, but unfortunately for Moeen, he hasn't performed. And Sam Curran, I think if he came into the side, it would be for a David Willey or for a Chris Woakes.
No?
Yeah, I'll just play devil's advocate a little bit. Liam Livingstone's got 3 wickets and averaging 10 with the bat. So I just don't see how he is a valuable, viable replacement for Moeen Ali.
That's why they've gone back to Moeen.
Yeah, I wouldn't have Moeen Ali in the team. My second spin bowling option would be Joe Root to get 4 or 5 overs, and say Sam Curran. We don't need 10 overs out of Sam Curran. You might bowl 10 if you have a cracking day. You might bowl 5 or 6. But as a batter, I'm happy for you to bat at 7, a good batting option. I don't think Moeen Ali, in my opinion, right now, I don't have Moeen Ali or Liam Livingstone in the team.
Yeah, I would have Moeen in because of his ability to bowl spin and his experience on the pitch. I think Liam Livingstone, Niall makes a great point. He's been talked about potential for so many years now. He's 30-year-old, and has he got better? He sort of flatters to deceive a little bit. So the Liam Livingstone one, I can understand why he's not in the side. But I think to get Sam Curran in the side, I think one of your other seam bowling all-rounders, I think should make way. a David Willey or a David Willey or a Chris Wokes. The idea of having Willey, Wokes, Curran, Atkinson in the team, four seamers, I just don't see the point of having four seamers out in India.
Fair enough. I believe we'll have a lot more debate when we talk about the batting suit of the players we've just mentioned. It just dawned on me while this interaction happened how brilliant a seat this is to have an Englishman and an Irishman go at it. I am raring for the rest of this day, however it pans out. But before we proceed to the English batting, let's quickly take you through the Netherlands lineup. They've made one change. Saqib Zulfikar, their leg spinner, had not been having the greatest of tournaments. They've brought in instead Teja Nidamanuru, who had such a sterling qualifying campaign, was raking up the centuries there. That's the only change the Netherlands make to the lineup that lost to Afghanistan in Lucknow in their last outing. Netherlands bowling first, England batting first, gives us a good opportunity to look back again on what has been easily the biggest problem for England, their batters not showing up. We are 7 games into the World Cup, Steve, and there are only 2 batters who've crossed 150 runs for the tournament, and that too only just. One of them, David Malan, who did the bulk of his scoring in 1 innings. We've obviously known that the playing style of this English setup relies on a certain mentality, on confidence. When that takes a beating the way it has at this World Cup, does that make it just that much harder to bounce back from?
It always makes it harder to bounce back from when you're constantly losing and your heads are always down. And I think looking at that start, the two you were expecting to be in the higher echelons of the run scoring would be Joss Buttler would be one and Johnny Bairstow would be the other. The way England have played their game has been about power leading into the World Cup and making them champions. The two people that you wouldn't expect to be the leading run scorers in the tournament, who a lot of people would argue that there was actually only room for one of them in the group if Jason Roy had been fit, and that would have been David Malan and Joe Root. So a lot of people don't think that Malan and Root should play in the same ODI team. So for them to be the leading run scorers at this minute in time, I think it tells you everything about the way the other batters have performed in this tournament.
Just for added context, Niall, when we look at that 150 mark for the competition, a lot of the batters who've been talked up about being out of form across the board, think the likes of Tom Latham, Steve Smith and Imam-ul Haq, they've all crossed 150. But you look at this English side, no one has.
Yeah, it's a serious issue, and it's confidence. It's not ability. We can't, watching England play game in, game out here in the UK, and Harmy will do a lot of work in the UK, and I'm watching a lot of cricket. The ability is there. We all know that cricket is not played necessarily just with ability alone. It's played with mindset, it's played with your brain, it's played with your heart. And the one question mark about this England team for a number of years now is the way they're playing, the style they're playing. When it clicks, it's beautiful. They play at Trent Bridge or they play at the Oval and they smack 400 and it looks brilliant. They go to Amstelveen against Netherlands, they get nearly 500. But you have to have a plan B and a plan C. We've seen Virat Kohli in this tournament get 100 off 120 balls and play the scenario and play the situation. So, England, for me, it was one extreme to the other. It was all guns blazing, bowled out in 35 overs a couple of times. And then it was, shut up shop and just going through the motions and not going with the right intent. So that's confidence. I can only put it down for confidence. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes with all this contract talk. I think that's affected. I don't like listening to whispers from in and around a camp, but I believe the contracts and the situations and those negotiating tools that was going on between board and players reps had some effect or some discontent. A lot of players talking within each other. What contract are you getting? That has to seep in to the field of play, and that's disappointing.
Yeah, and if we can focus specifically on one batter, we've spent a lot of time through this World Cup on Ben Stokes. You've spoken about Joss Buttler in the build-up, but Joe Root, he was the leading scorer in that 2019 campaign, just consistently, putting on the scores. While he's crossed 150 for For a player of his standards, it is still a severely underwhelming campaign. 188 runs at this point in 7 innings. And we've seen a definite climb down in Joe Root, the ODI batter, through this World Cup cycle. Would you say there's a lot of pressure on Joe Root and his future in this particular format?
There probably will be. There'll be question marks going forward whether Joe Root continues to play 50-over cricket. I think that's for another day. I think the numbers there tell you that in home conditions, averaging 51 in a World Cup. England were primed and ready for that T20 World Cup in 2019. The build-up to that T2019 World Cup was meticulous. The players were ready for that. They were built towards that. Towards this one, I think Joe Root is mentally and physically tired. He has to be. The amount of cricket that lad's played over the course of the last 2 years, off the back of the 4 or 5 years being captain, I think we're now seeing it taking its toll on Joe Root, the batter. And I think, unfortunately, he's our best player of spin. I expect him to come here and have the decent numbers. But unfortunately, like anybody said, Niall was saying before about contracts and about other outside distractions. There were outside distractions, but at the end of the day, these 15 players that came from England are the best 15 players before the tournament that everybody would have picked. I don't think anybody would have argued with the squad that's coming. They haven't performed, and a big surprise who hasn't performed is obviously Joe. But I think looking into 2019 and looking into this series, it's a complete and chalk and cheese compared to whatever the build-up was going into either tournament. And I think because of what's happened with Joe in between time, with the captaincy of the Test matches, the debacle of Test cricket, and then the shift towards what the Ashes was, I think Joe Root's had a lot on his plate, and unfortunately, something's got to give.
Yes, Niall, go on.
Just looking at that stat, and I wasn't aware of that stat. He's played 23 games of 50-over cricket in 4 years.
Yeah.
He's playing six games of one-day cricket a year. So he's effectively playing one game every 2 months. Now, I know England haven't been playing a lot of one-day cricket and they've been utilising squads. And I think in this day and age, you have to utilise it and broaden your player base. But is there a case that maybe, Harmy, and you'll know as well as anyone, that maybe England have, as you mentioned, not prioritised 50-over cricket and now are paying the price, and the likes of players just haven't played enough?
Yeah, and I think to knock-on effect from that, Niall, is what I've been saying for quite a while now. You've experienced English cricket. I don't think English cricket can sustain 3 top teams at all 3 formats: the Test format, the T20 format, and the 50-over format. If you go on the history, England's one of them is always lagging by the wayside. It was Test matches for a long period of time. Ben Stokes comes in. He gets what he wants to build an Ashes series, which England should have won the Ashes. Let's not sugarcoat that. England should have won the Ashes. We win 2020 World Cup, but the one format, like Niall just mentioned there, one of our best one-day players and the reasons why we won in 2019 was the form of the likes of Joe Root. He's played 6 games a year since 2019. Yeah,
and it's something that has reflected when you look at the broader numbers, a conversation that has carried while we've watched this England campaign unravel. Just how little cricket they played. It's something the coach himself brought up earlier in the campaign, Matt Mott, when he admitted that England did get the preparations wrong. And in these last 2 games, the pressure on Matt Mott, is that a factor as well? We've got our own Matt Roller, who is in Pune for this game. Here he is with the significance of what these last 2 games bring forward.
I'm here in Pune, which is 7,000 kilometres away from Amsterdam. The reason that's relevant is that England play the Netherlands here, but also because Amsterdam was the venue for Matthew Mott's first game in charge of England as their white ball head coach last year, back in June, at a time when everything really was rosy in the world of England's white ball teams. England that day in their first game against the Dutch for a while in ODI cricket racked up 498. It was a baking hot day in Amstelveen, a suburb down the south of the city. Joss Buttler made 162 and lost, I think, 9 kookaburras that he hit out of the ground, at considerable cost to the KNCB, the Dutch board. And basically everything was good if you were involved in England's white ball setup, as Mott for the first time was. Fast forward to November 2023, things are looking not so rosy at all. England find themselves rock bottom of this World Cup with 6 defeats from their first 7 games, a sentence that I don't think I envisaged saying when I landed in the country on October the 2nd, and really need to win today against the Dutch in order to qualify for the Champions Trophy in 2025. Missing out on that would be pretty ignominious in its own right for the defending champions, or attacking champions as they prefer to be called, but also would be a real source of problems for Matthew Mott, who already at this stage feels under a bit of pressure. Rob Key, the managing director and the guy that hired Mott, is flying out later this week and will meet up with the team in Kolkata. He's been here earlier in the tournament, and it's probably over the top to say it'll be crisis talks, but if England lose to the Dutch, there will definitely be a little conversation there about his future and how he can take England forward. Mott's 18 months into a 4-year contract, and there's a T20 World Cup in the Caribbean and the US next year, so it seems to me at least that the likelihood is he'll probably keep his job, especially if England manage to finish in the top 8 with a win or 2 in these last couple of games. The question is, if they're defeated by the Dutch, which seems a lot more likely than it would have 18 months ago, that will be a real issue for him, and his job will come under some serious scrutiny. Be interested to hear Harmy's thoughts from the studio as to whether or not Mott should keep his job, in both scenarios really. You know, if England qualify for the Champions Trophy, my hunch is he's safe, but if they miss out, I'll leave that with you.
Right, let's put that question straight to Harmy then.
Yeah, I think he's safe for now. I think he's safe until at least the end of the Caribbean and America's T20 competition. I think from a Matthew Mott point of view, when he came in, I think Niall was in commentating on it in Amstelveen when he first came in. You're damned if you do and damned if you don't if you're Matthew Mott. You come in and you put your philosophy forward to a team who have just won your world champions and potentially going to be, you know, the one of the best T20 teams in the world, and it doesn't go well, then all of a sudden it doesn't you don't last 5 minutes. If you come and just enjoy the wave of Owen Morgan's team, and then I think the difference between this is Owen Morgan not being there, and now Jos Buttler and Matthew Mott are very, very similar. I think you mentioned Rob Key coming across. I think Rob Key will come across, and knowing Keezy as I do, I think he'll come over and take some responsibility on himself, and I think he will hopefully back Matthew Mott and Jos Buttler to go to the next world event. If they lose this and they don't qualify for the Champions Trophy, then the importance of that T20 competition is massive, because if they don't qualify for the Champions Trophy, there's probably 80% of this team, if not 90% of this team, you'd look to move on, because they're not going to be there in 4 years' time when the next world event comes. So for me at this moment in time, Matthew Mott is safe, because I want to give, the reason why I hired him, if I was Rob Key, was to, you know, take this white ball team to the next level. I'm not sure he's not had the chance because of the senior group that's in there at this moment in time. He goes to the Caribbean after this World Cup with Jos Buttler, and he stamps his authority and his philosophies on this white ball team. And if it doesn't work out after the next world event in 2020, then there might be a change.
Niall, is that something you'll agree with, given what Steve points out will be a transitional phase for the ODI set up for England? Makes sense to persist with a man who you brought in for a long-term plan?
Yeah, listen, he won a T20 World Cup 12 months ago. So, you know, it's very easy to, you know, fire a shot to the coach and a team that's under pressure. But, you know, 12 months ago, they were lifting a trophy down under in Australia. So he has bought himself a little bit of time. I would give him to the T20 World Cup. If they go to the T20 World Cup and have a stinking tournament, which I don't think they will, but if they go to the USA and the West Indies and have a really poor tournament, his race will be run, whether they're in the Champions Trophy or not. So these two games are big. I don't think it's going to be massively important on his future career. I think the T20 World Cup is going to be more important for Matthew Mott. And this is going to be an interesting stage for Matthew Mott actually in his coaching career, because he had good success with the Australian women team. He had up and down success when he was in county cricket with Glamorgan. He was my coach in Australia for the World Cup in 2015. He was our batting coach. And he's a lovely, lovely fella. And he's a good coach. But this is a serious test now. How does he go to the Caribbean very soon and maybe change his mindset, philosophy, or body language, or actual language, and the way he directs this team, or way he tries to shape this team. Does he get a bit more firm-handed, or does he still stay nice and relaxed and let the guys do their thing? Because at the moment, he's let the players do their thing, and they've let him down. You know, a lot of the players have come out and said, Matthew Mott's given us everything we need. We've got all the support staff we need. It's our fault. So, you know, I don't like blaming coaches all the time. I was a player, Harmy played. I never blame my coach when I couldn't get a run or I dropped a catch. So I think it's more on the players. But I think Matthew Mott's got time. And Keezy, obviously, myself and Harmy know him very well. He was my captain at Kent and a pal of mine. He's got to back the person he's employed on a 4-year deal to turn it around.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think the interesting conundrum here, Niall, is Matthew Mott, the person. You've said you worked with him and worked under him. You know Josh Butler. Is there a problem that they're both the same? Because if you look at somebody that you know even better, is Owen Morgan, the leader of England and England's greatest ever captain, possibly greatest ever captain, definitely a white ball captain. You could see there was a distinct man in charge when Morgs had it over Trevor Pearless and Matthew Mott. Are you looking into anything that we might have two nice guys here, and that might be an issue?
Yeah, it's a great point. And, you know, I know Owen. I've known Owen since he was knee-high to a grasshopper, and I played cricket with him for Ireland for many years. And I would not like to be on the wrong side of a conversation with Owen. It would always be well judged, well balanced, but you'd know if you were in the wrong or if you had to pull up your socks. I listened to Josh Butler's press conference, and Josh Butler's a lovely lad. He's a terrific cricketer, and he's a lovely human being. Do I see him giving a volley? Sometimes players need a volley. Sometimes you need a rocket and say, oi, that's not good enough. Standards here. Stop, looking for excuses outside of you. Get on with it. Do your job. I think Matthew Mott and Josh Butler are very similar, and that might need to shift. Whether Josh needs to step up and say, Muddy, you know what? I'm going to get out of my comfort zone a little bit. Make sure these guys know what I expect and who's in charge. Or whether Matthew Mott says, hold on a minute, my job's on the line here. I've got a good contract with the ECB. It's a good job. I don't want that. I don't want to look back after the T20 World Cup and say, I wish I'd have done this differently. So I think we'll see a shift in mentality one way or the other come this tour of the Caribbean.
And we get what we get, just to go on from that. And the reason why I asked the question to now is when you look at the test team, you know who's in charge. That's Ben Stokes. And Ben Stokes will give somebody a volley. So I think that's my only concern going forward that Rob Key's got to work out. Is it two very similar people who are nice guys? Are they too nice to potentially be in charge of this unit going forward?
Right. Wonderful perspective there. Thank you, gentlemen, for that conversation. A good omen for Matthew Mott, if I may, in what has been a World Cup of very little good omen for England. 4 times at this World Cup before this has a coach come up against and beaten a team they used to play for. Jonathan Trott and Chris Silverwood did it to England. Grant Bradburn for Pakistan did it to New Zealand. And Chandika Hathurusinga did it for Bangladesh against Sri Lanka. So Matthew Mott, we wish him well for this game against his former side, Netherlands. The game's almost underway here, so it's time to bring in the predictions. Niall, I'll let you know that Steve almost had it. I mean, I'm not going to take it away from him because he predicted Afghanistan to score about 300 and he predicted them to win. It only took a mad miracle for it to not happen, so I'm giving him half a point for yesterday. But
yeah, that's fair.
Let's hear from you, Niall. What's the score England are putting up here in Pune?
Well, good surface, Pune. I'm expecting England to, first of all, win this game. I'm expecting England to put about 320, 330 on the board. I wouldn't be surprised if the likes of, Joe Root goes out and gets a big score. So I'll say England 328 for 8.
Oh, we love it when you go into specifics. Steve Harmison, now with the benefit of having seen Johnny Bairstow hit the 4th ball for 4. I'm
going to go a bit higher. I'm going to go 340. I think England will put a thoroughly professional performance in and try and... Look, these players aren't bad players overnight, and I think there's some absolute quality in this side. And I think the wicket looks an absolute belter, so I'm going to go 340 for England to win by a large margin.
Okay, 328 and 340. That does it for us for now. Thank you, Niall. Thank you, Steve, for your time. Look forward to your company for the rest of this day. The game's underway, so you know where to go to have yourself covered with all the action. The ESPN Cricinfo mobile app, if you haven't already, Play Store, App Store, go download it now. There's still so much to read and catch up on as we try to address the hangover from that Maxwell mania that we saw in Mumbai last night. So go read all of that, and as soon as this England innings is over, we will be back here on Maruti Suzuki Arena. Presents ESPN Cricinfo Matchday, powered by Qatar Airways.
Stunning looks, then swift,